Big weekend.
Yeah.
I'm still a little bit dusty from it. How did you go? You covered it for Zero Hanger?
Yeah, no, it was obviously a big day, a big week, and what a high to finish on, really. Yeah. I think a lot of people were, and we've been disappointed in the past with season deciders and grand finals. And you look at kind of the average winning margins, not only for the grand finals, but usually the clubs that end up taking out the Premiership do so with a decent average winning margin across the whole of September. And the Pies, by a total of 12 points, claimed 3 wins. They left the best for the last. It was if you could imagine how a Collingwood would win a grand final off the back of their last 18 to 24 months. That's probably exactly how you would picture it.
Yeah.
And then Brisbane as well. Like, credit to them. Hard to take, but they'd be so happy with how their season panned out, I think. And couldn't quite get it over the line, but better team, more deserving team, got it done in the style that we've come to know them to do. And like I said, it built up. A lot of people thought it was going to be a close game, or maybe at least hoping for a close game. But whatever it was, we got it, and it was just a game full of big moments. There's plenty of highlights. There's every grand final moment has a highlight or two. This was just chock full from the first goal to the last. It was just one of the best grand finals we've had, probably even the best grand final we've had for some time. 2018 comes to mind. You look at 05, 06, 2009, 2010.
2021.
But when you're talking about, as a spectacle, and if you want to kind of show someone that's never watched footy before a game, you show them that.
Well, we were saying it at the on the day. Shout out to Jaden and Chelsea, who hosted the grand final party that I attended. Shout out to everyone that hosted a grand final barbecue. But probably the best grand final since 2018. And Collingwood were on the losing end of that one, and I think they've kind of rectified that little situation now. Especially with everyone that calls for Maynard getting blocked in that Dom Sheed mark. Well, now they've got one, and that advantage call kind of balances that out, I think.
That was a big one. I think if the ump could have it back, he would. Not to say that decides the grand final.
Not at all.
Collingwood's backline held up quite well for most of the day. Lockie Neal has a kick 55 out. He's probably not shooting, and the Pies probably had enough men back to probably work it back in their favour. But like I said, it's just butterfly effects and what ifs. But at the end of the day, Pies won by 4, and they'll be premiers forever. Yeah.
No, that's footy. All right. Well, we've got a list of big takeaways and big moments each. So let's go one for one.
You want to start off with the first second of the game, don't you?
Yeah, I do, because the whole grand finals, that build up, right? You got Kiss playing, you got all the national the grand, what do you call it, national anthem?
The national anthem.
And then it's all leading up to that massive bounce, and then he stuffed it.
It wasn't. I think it was Simon Meredith. It wasn't his finest. It was annoying though, because I feel like throughout all of September so far, the bounces have been really good.
Yeah, they have.
They nailed them, and then the one that everyone actually cares about. And there anti-climactic.
A lot. I know the umps for me personally, I don't mind if they get rid of it.
I'm saying I couldn't care. I don't mind a few traditions in footy. The bounce isn't the one I'm gonna fight for.
And they're already slowly starting to take it away anyway. They only bounced at the start of.
I think it was a Sunday Footy Show had some good points as well. Look, no one's going to care. I think in 3-4 years if you've gotten rid of it. It could even be 3-4 weeks after you like no one's caring. And then if it's someone else said it as well. If you're keeping out the best umps, like Ray Chamberlain might not have made the grand final anyway, but he wasn't umpiring the finals because of a sore back. And because he couldn't bounce. That was pretty much the only thing that was keeping him out of selection for finals. So if we can't have our best umpires in it because of a bounce, that again maybe it's 50-50 on what side of the fence you sit, then I'm probably for getting rid of it. I'm happy with it in the game, but I think it just kind of takes out any chance of a mistake, because ball ups just 99 out of 100 usually are fine. And the other same thing is that there'd be hours that umpires have to work on bouncing when they could be training for decision making and scenarios and everything else. So I think that's probably a good reason as well for why we can get rid of it.
Get rid of it. All right. Your point?
Collingwood's midfield and senior players as well, and I guess their midfield is mostly senior players, and maybe outside of Nick Dacos and Josh Dacos. But when you got Chris De Goey, Mitchell, Pendlebury, all of them stood up. And I think more than half their goals came from midfielders, and that might have been a plan in their attack. You know, they lose Dan McStay, and Billy Frampton's playing more of a defensive game, which we'll touch on in a sec. But you know, you get 2 goals from Jordan De Goey, 2 goals from Jack Crisp, Scott Pendlebury got in there with 1. Nick Dacos kicked the first one of the day. Still Sidebottom had another. So what's that? 7 goals I think I've rattled off, and they kicked 12 or 13. So like I said, half or more than half of their goal count came through midfield. Bobby Hills kicked 4 of them. So a lot of their avenue to goal was through midfield, and that was just how that group stood up and working it more offensively. And like I said, maybe that is how they kind of went to plan that. You look at the last De Goey goal, just the attack, and they were down at that point, that just attacking flow that all the players just switched into, just running in towards forward 50. The second Pendlebury had it in his hands in the middle, so that worked out really well. And then post siren goals were also a part of that. Jordan De Goey's in the first term, Jack Crisps at half time. Big moments. Nick Dacos had a really big moment, I think, to get Crisp's goal. Couple of hands on the wing and just worked really hard and just shot, and I guess in quarter shot clock awareness, which is something Collingwood obviously do very well, not only at the end of the game but at the end of quarters. So that was a big factor, I think, and a big take in how the Pies got the job done. Yeah,
absolutely. And my next one was just Cameron, Charlie Cameron and Danaher for the Lions were just immense, and I think one of the criticisms they've had, arguably in the last 5 years, where the Lions have sort of fallen short, is that Cameron and Danaher haven't played that well in the big games. But they finally got to the biggest game of all year, and they had pretty immense games. Cameron 3 goals and Danaher
he had 3 as well. Yeah,
and big goals too.
Absolutely.
Momentum shifting ones, and that last Danaher with that goal to. I mean, it was more off the back of Mccluggage on the wing, but then Danaher kicking that snap with 90 seconds to go. That was probably the most I've screamed all game. It was
it's a big moment.
Great moment.
Yeah, and he's just so comfortable and calm. A lot of players, like you feel like you are rushed, and they were rushed.
Yeah,
but he just
he didn't look like Joey Danaher normally looks throughout a game, because most of the time he's like a big Labrador and he's having fun out there. But he looked switched on that entire game. Yeah. And I thought he was going to end up being a Premiership hero. Yeah,
he was among their best. And like you said, Cameron as well. Didn't have a heap of touches, but when he got the ball, he damaged.
Yeah.
Next one for me, and I mentioned him before, Billy Frampton. A lot of people are really split if he had a good game or a bad game. He had a role to play, and that was to kind of negate Harris Andrews. And I think he did that for a lot of the game. But Harris Andrews was also, I think, one of Brisbane's best performers. He got shut out a little bit, and that's a role that Frampton played well. But at the same time, I think Andrews might have had the most intercept possessions. He still took 9 marks. So I don't know if you can say Frampton, completely took him out of it, but he was certainly a factor for why Harris Andrews couldn't be at his best. And I feel like if he's not playing that role, then there's a very good chance the Lions win, and Harris Andrews is your Norm Smith medalist. But at the same time, while his role he was playing a defensive role, and that kind of maybe could relate to why Collingwood's midfield was so attacking. But at the same time, there were a few mistakes from Billy Frampton. His first final, to be fair, and he hasn't played in a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of credit to go to him. But I honestly can't tell if it's a good game or a bad game. Well, I can't tell what kind of performance that is, because maybe it is one where it just you're good in one half, you're bad in the other, and there were a few players like that on the day. Not necessarily to say this guy was bad in the second half, but you've got a Brisbane line next up in your big moments or takes.
Yeah, so Keidean Coleman, who was looking on track to... he was looking like he was going to end up getting the Norm Smith by halftime. He had 22 disposals, I think, and then I think maybe 4 after that, after halftime. So just a really good move by McRae and the Pies to sort of nullify him after halftime, because he was, and coming off the back of his prelim as well, like just an influential player, really good. But just a great move by Collingwood. I think, I'm not sure who went to him, but he did get quite nullified.
I think it was a team. I can't tell. I think it might have been a team job, but you're right.
Rotations.
It's actually one of the really good points for how well this is as a coaching and playing group that they can make a switch like that if they need to, and then still keep their own game and stay on top of their own game and on top of the contest. So I probably haven't looked into how they did it, but if it was a plan that they discussed at halftime, it's a really good effort to put that in play, and then also be able to continue playing your own game and focus in that forward third for them. So that was big. Hugh Mccluggage, I thought, was Brisbane's best player. You mentioned that kind of moment in the pocket to set up Danaher's goal. I think that was his third goal assist for the day. Kicked 2 of his own. Lachie Neale and Josh Dunkley certainly weren't didn't have off games, but they might not have had the same effect. Like Josh Dunkley was obviously running with Jordan De Goey. Lachie Neale had Tom Mitchell by his hips. So Mccluggage, as he already has done this in September, he was immense. He was I thought Brisbane's best player, and up there with Coleman and Danaher.
Yeah. And last one from me was just Murphy going off after the first quarter. That hit to the head. It was just, it's just interesting. I think I haven't seen something like that in a grand final. I think
he actually revealed he had taken himself out of the game, so he might have passed his concussion test. And a funny thing, and this might have to be looked into a little bit, is that he said he could pass the concussion test because he's kind of done it before. Yeah, which is kind of no problem with him saying that and revealing that. It is a bit sus though, if you do, if you have players who might not be fit, and not a lot of and it takes a lot of courage to take yourself out of a grand final. So that was a big decision to make from him. But if you've got players that want to be playing in a grand final that know how to do a concussion test. Yeah. But then he said, I think he was feeling dizzy and maybe couldn't walk straight or something. Yeah, I think he started getting symptoms a bit later on. And that can happen with concussions. Like you get delayed, there's no, it's no obvious, it's not always straightforward. So they are tricky ones. But that was a blow for him. Good thing that they got the win and he got to at least play in a grand final. He got there. I always think back to 2021, obviously, with James Jordan getting a premiership medal but never actually stepping foot on the ground. So that was Cam Guthrie. I think Joel Selwood or Patrick Dangerfield might have revealed it earlier this week as well. That Cam Guthrie, I don't know if he actually faked an injury or not, but he went off as sub last year's grand final so that Brandon Parfitt could come in. Right. But I'm not sure if it was faked or if he actually had a niggle. But he wanted Brandon Parfitt in the game and he said, maybe I'll just take myself out. So some interesting stories around subs, and we'll probably get a few more with the sub rule sticking around. Also easy to do that when you're 100 points up. Yeah, that too. Yeah, that's a bit of a factor as well. And obviously I just want to finish on a bit of a high. Bobby Hill. Yeah. Unreal. Just so memorable as a performance. I don't think he didn't have any huge goals. They were just obviously every goal in this game was big though. And he took his chances. Had a huge mark. The mark. Good Lord. The mark's probably the most memorable moment of the game. Yeah. And that was probably the moment when you thought, okay, he's on today, and this is a Norm Smith winning performance if they hold on. I think he obviously assisted a couple. He gave that one off to Scott Pendlebury, which is just smart footy. Well, that's a great moment as well, because he had every right to go back and have a shot. He was on fire. Yeah, so just smart footy, and certainly deserving of the Norm Smith medal. So I guess that's Pies settled on a season, and like we said, I think it was deserving for them to win it after kind of being the top side from round one. Yeah. But do you have them as your premiership tip for next year? It's pretty early. I don't think any of the top four are going to drop out. If I had to pick one to drop out of that top four next year, it might be Port. But even then, that's a pretty big ask. Or D's, but even GWS, it will be interesting to get a read on how well they perform next year. Yeah. I think the Lions are going to be pretty strong still. Fags talked in his post, in his presser about, the teams that have lost a tight one in a grand final have gone on to win the next year. Except the Saints. Yeah, but I'm going to have to go with the bias and say the D's. I think we're so close. We just need to fix that. Yeah, it's going to be interesting, who kind of betters their list and who's just relying on development. I don't see Melbourne bettering their list. Lose Harms and maybe Grundy and Jordan, and then pretty much all depth options anyway for this year. You get some extra legs into some younger guys. The fact that Petrarca and Clary at 25, 26, 27, so they've still got peak years ahead of them. I think top four for Melbourne, GWS I probably won't be having in top 4, but it's hard to put them out of the top 8. Port probably in the same bracket. Like if I have to tip, if I'm tipping, or then I'm putting Pies 1, Lions 2. And I think it could be like 21 years ago when they go back to back in grand finals.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's going to be a good one next year. A lot of clubs are going to be pushing for a top 8 spot that weren't in it this year as well.
Yeah, interesting.